Hello once again, audience. When we left off, I was down here, digging everything I could ever find.
Hey, audience.
Hello once again,
Tim.
that's Toby Turner.
He's so
I think we can all agree YouTube used to be a much different place.
Hey, it's Fred! And it's really nice out, so I think I'm gonna go swimming later. My mom found this really cool pool at the dump.
As opposed to the various music and craft channels topping the charts now, there was a time many years ago when the biggest names on YouTube consisted mainly of independent creators. Legends from Ray William Johnson to Mystery Guitar Man to him. Now, believe it or not, this hellish website wasn't always a festering breeding ground for massive corporate entities to take advantage of. Instead, there was more emphasis on the individual, allowing some of today's biggest names to grow their audience and propel themselves into much desired fame. But unfortunately, not every grassroots YouTuber was lucky enough to maintain their relevance for long. Some died out after floundering for a period of years, simply unable to keep up with the ever-changing social atmosphere that plagues every aspect of our online climate. For better or for worse, some of the platform's oldest and most respected veterans have slowly faded into the woodwork and merely serve as just another stitch in the ever-renowned fabric of YouTube. Today, we're going to be talking about the internet's brightest star who somehow managed to slowly fade away into the darkest corners of obscurity over the span of a few years. This guy.
Audience? What are you doing? Look at that. Almost at sunset. So pretty.
Hi! I used to love Tobuscus so much. So much, dude. Like, he had such an impact on my childhood that it's not even funny. From smash hits like Dramatic Song, Viral Song, Daft Punk Get Lucky parody Happy Wheel song with subtitles.
We don't need a car.
That's a clip.
The space bar.
Yeah, you're going too fast.
I ate it up, man. I loved all of it growing up. I remember kids at my school wearing Tobuscus merchandise and singing Safety Torch in the middle of class. That's the kind of reach we're talking about here. Nugget and the Biscuit was on repeat in my head at all times as a kid, which is probably why I'm so messed up as an adult now, but honestly, I couldn't get enough.
I think the world needed a song about putting nuggets in biscuits and just dipping that whole thing in mashed potatoes. The barbecue sauce, that was just kind of freestyled into there. But I don't think it detracted from the points I wanted to make, which was nugget, biscuit, sandwich.
None of his content mattered more to me than his Minecraft Let's Plays. As an epic crafter myself, I would binge every single episode of his Minecraft series when it first came out. Back in those days, Minecraft parodies were my drug, and Tobuscus was my dealer.
Do you like my sword, 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 my diamond sword, sword? You cannot afford, afford my diamond sword, sword. Even if you goat, I have a patent.
Ah, that's the good shit right there. Tobuscus actually achieved a lot back in the day. His extremely extroverted, manic personality was enough to get people's attention, and the content itself provided a gateway into popularity. It's like his Cute Win Fail series actually had some proper thought behind it. Through some of his earliest hits, he was able to amass a grand total of 14 million subscribers and 3.7 billion views across his 3 channels. That is a remarkable achievement for one man. He definitely deserves more credit than he gets, at least on that front. Toby was hitting his stride, selling t-shirts, plush dolls, action figures, making numerous appearances on TV shows and movies. Apparently.
Guys, I got the ranch dressing!
Ranch dressing?
Veggie zombies hate that stuff, almost as much as they hate happiness and babies.
What a world, man. For just a little under a decade, Toby was on top of the world. At the peak of his career, there seemed to be no end in sight. Or at least, that's what he thought. When Toby Turner crafted his first channel into existence over a decade ago, he never could have imagined the extent to which it would one day grow. And how could he? Back in 2011, the most popular channel on YouTube was a meth-addicted spastic named
Ray William Johnson.
SpongeBob cheeseburger.
Like many popular channels, Tobuscus didn't initially set out to be someone. Success just kind of fell into his lap. After one of his earliest uploads hit the algorithm with a bang and gave him his first 1 million views, he decided he wasn't going to stop there. Toby got to work making original songs, skits, cartoons, let's plays, even vlogs. These categories eventually evolved into several career-defining series that people would come to expect from him. I'm talking literal trailers, cute win fail, animated sketches and songs, videos where he just sits and talks to his dog.
Toby, it's an emergency. Guess what?
If it was an emergency, you wouldn't have me guess what it is.
Toby, just guess, please.
Okay, I'll guess. Are you potty trained now?
How is a potty supposed to train me to do anything?
His 3 channels harbored a myriad of content that provided enough entertainment for anyone in his target age range of 11 to maybe 16 at the oldest. He had an aptitude for creating fun, relatively safe videos that were tied together with his infectious personality that rivaled that of an ADHD-ridden 12-year-old. As a creator, if you can tap into that crucial child demographic, you've made it. You're all set from there. And thanks to his neurotically unhinged persona, Toby was able to do just that. Kids are the reason most of the biggest YouTubers have gotten to be where they are today. They're active, naive, and unequivocally loyal. That's why you see so many mainstream names pandering to notably young audiences. It's because kids bring in the cash, or it's because they're looking for a new lover. But yeah, that's a story for another day, okay? We're not talking about that. The thing about Tobuscus is that he couldn't have been more alluring to children. With his flashy, in-your-face, random XD type comedy, he was perfectly fit for any young teen's recommended page. His friendships and collaborations with other well-respected creators fanned the flames, and his ability to grab the eye of a critical demographic set him up for long-term success. For a while, he was impossible for kids, parents, and teens to ignore. But somehow, despite following all of the necessary steps to achieve viral fame, he let it slip through his fingers. Somewhere along that long and treacherous path to relevancy, Toby lost his way. But how? Well, I think I know what your mind jumps to.
Let's get right into the news.
It's definitely into a more gray area.
I have an experience with Toby Turner as well.
Toby Turner rape allegations.
Me too. In 2016, his already declining brand was hit with some of the most damning accusations any public figure can possibly endure. The first time I had ever seen Keemstar was when he covered the infamous allegations of Toby Turner on Drama Alert. In April of 2016, his ex-lover April Fletcher made some massive waves in the community after publishing an electrifying Tumblr post titled "The Truth About Tobuscus." Now, I'm not going to read the entire post to you because it is pretty long, but it's fair to say she made a myriad of damning claims that were shocking enough to sink any career regardless of their legitimacy. She detailed both the emotional and physical trauma she was forced to endure while he was under the influence of drugs, making a point to drive home the abusive nature of Toby by recounting the time he drugged and raped her. Wait, can I say rape? I don't know if I can say rape. I don't think I can. Her post depicts a horrific series of anecdotes, describing Toby as a manipulative, drug-addicted predator who heartlessly and repeatedly assaulted the one who loved him the most. She describes feeling trapped, unable to leave out of concern that his anger issues would once again rear its ugly head. Like many victims of sexual assault, she described a petrifying fear of losing him had she ever decided to speak up against his heinous wrongdoings. It wasn't until years later, when she saw Tobuscus action figures being sold at Toys R Us, that she finally decided to come forward. And just like that, the story spread like wildfire, immediately followed up by an onslaught of similar allegations from some of his other past lovers and girlfriends, all following a similar pattern of behavior that depicted Tobuscus as a cold, heartless, sex-addicted monster. And given Toby's already unhinged reputation, people were pretty quick to believe them. But does that make the allegations absolutely 100% without a doubt true? No. In fact, sometimes it means the opposite. When we're looking into allegations that hinge on hearsay rather than indisputable facts, the heuristic technique is definitely one to consider. For those of you who didn't take one semester of psychology in high school, like, ya boy, heuristics is any approach to problem solving or self-discovery that employs a practical method designed to reach an immediate conclusion rather than an educated one. In other words, it's possible she could have fabricated these stories based around his perceived reputation. People already know Tobuscus as an impulsive ADHD wildcard, so it wouldn't be out of character for him to behave in the ways that she described. Her explicit attention to detail only gives the situation more credence, and frankly, it's not like people had a reason not to believe her. We may be familiar with his content, but nobody knows the real Toby Turner like his ex-girlfriend. She and so many others had been intimately familiar with Toby on several levels over the span of many years. I'm not saying that makes the allegations true, but it definitely makes them appear more legitimate, at least on the surface. Personally, I have no idea as to whether or not he's actually responsible for the atrocities he's been accused of. Nobody does, except for him and his supposed victims. I looked up to him as a child, so I'd like to hope he didn't do anything. Nobody ever wants their idol to be exposed as a predator. But that being said, I wouldn't be shocked. People defy our perceptions all the time, especially on the internet. No matter how much of their life an entertainer shares with their audience, there's only so much we as the viewer can gather. We ourselves cannot make any educated assumptions of Toby's character based on a few animated songs and skits. We do not know him as a person. Therefore, we can only work with the sparse insight we are given from those who know him better than us. Whether or not the allegations can be disputed is another conversation, but there is no question as to how this contributed to the inevitable corrosion of his career. I don't think the barrage of sexual misconduct allegations were solely responsible for the fall of Tobuscus. I think that despite playing a major role, it was ultimately a blend of multiple factors that came together to ruin his channel. As I see it, the dominoes had been lined up for the past year or so. It was just the allegations that put everything into motion. His audience had already been dwindling, and once he was exposed as a potential rapist, it all seemed to cave in. Normally, YouTubers can look to other means of income once their channel inevitably perishes. But the problem with Toby's situation is that he already had been publicly portrayed as a sexual assaulter. And aside from the emotional and mental damage that I'm sure ensues, that will haunt you no matter where you go. Your chances of finding work anywhere after that point are slim. No matter how big of a name you are, most brands are not quick to associate with a name that has been dragged through the mud with such tenacity. He even got fired from playing Ant-Man in a Marvel game, I guess that was a thing, whatever. Bottom line is, Toby had an uphill battle, and as he would prove over the next few months, it was not one that he was willing to fight. Toby's channel suffered a massive downfall unlike anything he had ever experienced before. His uploads became few and far between, and I noticed there seemed to be something different about him. Maybe it's just me outgrowing his sort of content, but every once in a while, when I decide to check in on our man, he seems hollow, soulless, like he's just doing it for the sake of doing it, as if he is desperately trying to relive the amazing times he once had, unable to accept that unless he wants to change his entire style of content, he's going to continue dwindling. This website is not the same as it used to be, and unless Toby wants to fade into further irrelevance, he's going to need to reevaluate some things. Every time I watch him now, it feels like he's stuck in 2014. It just feels weird, and I hate to see it happen to a creator we once all valued. There's a reason we don't look back on Toby the same way we look back on Filthy Frank. George knew when his time was up. He recognized that the atmosphere was changing, and he moved on to bigger and better endeavors. Now he's on his way to becoming a mainstream artist. That's how these giant creators should be looking at YouTube, as a launching pad instead of a permanent home. I'd like to see Toby move on to bigger projects, but given his recent track record, I just don't know if that's going to happen.
Al, maybe it's his name, Algorithm. Oh, damn, that's basically Al Gore's name. That's pretty good. It's like Al Gore with like a rhythm or something. He's like, I'm Al Gore.
Tobuscus was an icon. There's no disputing the fact that he embodies an entire era of YouTube. A lot of his most famous work is going to be valued for a long time, I imagine. He definitely managed to accomplish a lot, but unfortunately, content alone isn't enough for people to stick around. They stick around for your personality. And no matter how hard he tried, Toby just never poured enough of his own character into the persona we saw in his videos. He resembled a caricature of a man rather than an actual man people could sympathize and connect with. And it's incredibly sad to witness, because maybe if he had injected more of his own self into his crazy image we were all used to, people would have been more willing to follow him on his other creative endeavors. But instead, he never gave his audience anything to really grasp, and once the allegations cropped up, it was all over. But he still had a good run. No matter where the future will take Tobuscus, we will always find comfort in the backlog of nostalgia woven into an increasingly staggering yet highly memorable legacy. Oh, and also his lube. All right. Bless your face.